Right.
Hey guys. Hey Courtney, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, good. Guys, listen, we have the pleasure of having the Ivy investor, Courtney Richardson, joining us for this month's discussion about finance. I read Courtney's blogs and went to her website, and then I saw her interview with Lamar on Wacoinda and was incredibly impressed. We actually share a number of things in common. I won't get into those yet. I'll let her talk about those things. And Courtney, I'll tell you what, I'll pass it over to you. Courtney and I just spent a few minutes talking, so she kind of knows what our group does. Just for folks who are just seeing the journal for the first time, we're a group of retail investors who believe in blockchain technology, but we also want to invest in the end-to-end life cycle of a blockchain investment. So we look at those companies and technologies that feed blockchain technology, and we look at those companies and technologies that use blockchain technology that we can invest in the traditional stock market. So listen, with no further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Courtney. Courtney, first question is tell us about you, who you are, where you come from, what you do. I know it. I'm impressed. I'll pass it over to you now.
Okay, so thank you again for having me.
Sure.
So I don't know where to start. So I guess I'll start at the beginning. So I graduated and give me one quick second. I graduated in 2003.
Cool.
And I had a philosophy degree. And I wanted to go to law school. That was exactly what I was going to do. I was going to go to law school. That was my thought because I was a philosophy major.
Got it.
And philosophy majors, do, unless they're going to go and be a professor. So, to share that, I was like, okay, I'm a little over school for right now. University of Pittsburgh, Pitt's program like vacillates between like 1 and 2 in terms of like the top programs in the nation in terms
of their philosophy program or their law program?
Their philosophy program.
At University of Pittsburgh. Interesting. Wow.
I don't know. I don't know. So it was a really, good program.
Yeah.
And with that being said, it was kind of like, all right, well, I'm just over school, but I really need a job. My parents were like, that's great, you graduated, yay, but you need a job. So with that being said, is that I had to find something. And I got picked up by American Express Financial Advisors. And they said, you want to be a stockbroker? And I was like, okay, I have no idea what that is. But I mean, I sell stocks, I guess. And
Courtney, this was back in 2003.
Yes, back in 2000.
Awesome. Okay.
So, so with that being said, is that I was like, okay, I'll be a stockbroker, and I took the Series 7, which is the general securities license.
Yeah.
And then I took the Series 66, which is basically allowing me to charge my advice. And then I was kind of like, and then I took life, accident, health, and then I was off and running. Off and running to do what and with whom, I don't know. But I was doing like $100 a day, calling people to try to get them to do financial planning. As a 21, 22-year-old, that's very difficult. So,
True. I agree.
So it was a lot. I didn't love it. And at the time, I didn't even realize how important those licenses were. But I told my parents were like, listen, you stuck it out. Good job. You don't have to do this anymore.
All right, cool.
So my parents really helped me out and said, we'll help you with your rent and we'll do it. But, if you go find something else to do. So I ended up working part-time. I kind of picked up a couple of classes in business.
Yeah.
Didn't really love it. So I was like, let's see what I can do. But in those business classes, I met a woman who was, her husband was like a bank president or like high bank exec. Wow. So I ended up getting into banking and I was like, okay, well, this is cool. So I ended up working in banking. But I was living in Pittsburgh, and I was like, I really want to go back to Philly. And I said, well, if I can go back to Philly, and then I got picked up by another bank in Philly, and then, then I was picked up by Merrill Lynch, and I was like, yo, this is the life. And what kind of allowed me to do that was the Series 7. That Series 7 kind of was like the doorway to get in there. Because once the level of competency that came along with the 7 is that they can do it, they can do whatever work it is. The 7 is not an easy exam. People ask me, they're like, well, Now, granted, I will say the LSAT was actually harder than the 7, but that's another story for another day.
Yeah, okay. So, guys, just FYI, so I'm an attorney also. So, Courtney and I, that's the one thing we have in common is like we both did the LSAT. I'll tell you, I didn't think it was that hard. I take standardized tests really well. I'm just in the interest of full disclosure. I took the LSAT hungover from the night before hanging out with the Qs and scored in like 99th percentile. It was the craziest thing. I just never. Perhaps it was the hangover that did it. I don't know.
I was gonna say maybe I should have been home. I actually test very, very well. Like I did really well in the bar. I overstudied for the bar.
Awesome.
But this one, and I didn't do poorly. Let me clarify. I didn't do well. I didn't do poorly on the LSAT.
Yeah.
But to me, it was miserable. It was a miserable experience.
It is. The LSAT, the bar exam was miserable. I'm with you 1,000,000%. You said that the Series 7 was more difficult than the LSAT?
No, the LSAT was actually more difficult.
It was more difficult. Seriously, got you. Okay.
But I felt like the series, I didn't think it was easy, but for some reason that LSAT rule. Anyway.
Yeah, got you. Okay.
So the Series 7 kind of was the entryway of doing all the things that I guess I wanted to do. And at the time, the market was rocking and rolling. This is like 2005.
Oh, it was hot. That was 3 years before the bubble burst, right?
It was crazy. I mean, I was working in retirement planning, did a lot of work in retirement, and then I moved over to high net worth.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Listen, I had a ball. It was so much fun. I mean, it got to the point, we were having steak dinners. We were always being taken out by asset managers.
Whoa.
We had a party up in Jersey City, and I live in Philly.
Yeah.
And I remember they said, we'll just provide you black car service home. What?
From Jersey City.
From Jersey City to Philly. You're going to give black car service. And I'm like, I'm going to take it.
I'll take it.
And I mean, after a night, because we were drinking, we were eating, because life was good. And then, less than a year, the whole bottom fell out.
It's crazy. I tell the story, Courtney. When I left business school, the year I left, IBM hired 1,500 newly minted MBAs from the best schools around the world, right? We all went to Armonk, New York to train. I mean, laid everything out. The bubble burst. We were down to 700 the next year. The next year, there were 300 of us left. It was crazy. So I feel your pain. I got you. Yeah.
So, I mean, and we knew, and let me, full and fair disclosure, we knew something was wrong.
It was riding too high.
But not even that. I mean, there were real life fundamentals that, and I tell this story a lot. I tell it about my geeks friends. Yeah. So in 2000, I'll say December 2007, we were kind of at that point, we're just riding too high.
Yeah.
But the place where I knew we had a problem was in end of February 2008. And what happened is there's auction rate securities.
Okay.
7-day paper, 30-day paper. And basically it resets by buyers and sellers.
Gotcha. Yep.
But in this particular situation, the market failed because there were not enough buyers and sellers. Now, normally that can happen at any time. There's just not enough buyers and sellers. But who steps in? JP Morgan, Merrill Lynch, all the big dogs step in. They clear the market. Everybody goes back to being liquid. But over leveraged, so they couldn't jump in. That's how you knew that. You were like, oh, they just couldn't jump in. But you were like, no, we're over leveraged. And I said to my supervisor, because a lot of our high net worth advisors were using the paper as their cash allocation.
Wow.
It was liquid. So it was reset every 7 days. What difference did it make to you? But now that it didn't reset, now you have people that have a cash need, and you were going on to the secondary market and getting 70 cents on a dollar from your cash. So Merrill was having to make these people whole. And so that kind of caused the problem. I talked to my supervisor because I happened to take a call about this issue, and I kind of became the person. And I was like, isn't what caused 29? Wasn't that over leverage? And he just looked at me. His face became his face was just like stone.
So Courtney, so you lived that. So you lived it, man. That's crazy. Let me ask you, did you see that movie there's a movie that they showed where the guy predicted the crash? The Big Short. Yeah.
I kind of made a personal boycott of not watching anything during that time.
Wow.
And it's not a big deal. Like, it just kind of like when you live it, you're just kind of like, and then
Yeah,
I'm
I know
kind
what you mean.
of sad because I did see it, but I didn't process it the way I wanted to.
But how would you have known? I mean, honestly, how would you have known?
In February, I knew that, like I said, I knew we had a serious problem because I said, remember in February, I said, isn't this what caused the crash in 29? Like over leverage caused 29. So here we are over leveraged again. So to me, had I put 2 and 2 together, like right there, I would have pulled out of the market completely.
Wow.
Because I lost a lot, especially my Merrill stock, because we found out that Bank of America purchased Merrill. I was coming in from a client meeting. It was like September 08. First of all, banks are falling down like left and right. Boom, this bank fell down. Boom, this bank's down. Boom, boom. And it's like everything. Lehman went down. So Lehman was our bond. They handled our bond portfolio. So when we heard Lehman went down, we were like, whoa, like what is going on? So kind of to provide that concept. And then you're driving into work one day and you find out your job just got sold, got purchased by America. You're like, whoa, what? And then to add insult to injury, when I came into the office that day, because it was like early that morning, I guess it was right at market open.
Yeah.
When I came into the office, I was kind of like, there was nothing in my email. There was no conversation about it.
It was dead. No commentary about that at all.
No, and I was like, wow. Yo, and mind you, like I'm like my mid to late 20s. I'm like, yo. So this is really crazy. So that's kind of like my background. So I was laid off in March of 09. Which was good because I was preparing to go to law school because as we were doing a lot of these deals on the high net worth side, we were working with a lot of trusts, we were working with a lot of big entities, and the deals that we want, what we were trying to structure, we have to get it approved by legal and compliance. I was like, well, y'all don't like my deal? I did a good deal. This allocation is money. Like, don't y'all know? And and so I knew exactly, like, at the end of the day, legal ran the show.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Legal compliance contracts run the show. Absolutely right.
So I said, okay, so if you guys are running the show, then I'm going to run over there. So I was already preparing to go to law school. And I was going to go part-time. And I was we spent a lot of time talking with the trust department. So there were a couple of people over there. And one of the guys I spoke to, he was getting his he had his JD. He was getting LLM in taxation.
Oh, cool.
I was like, okay. And I kind of put it in February in my cap and kind of moved on. So in March of 09, I was laid off. I spent a month in the Philippines. I got a really nice severance.
Nice. All right. Nice.
So I said, okay, so now I can reposition, went to law school. Where'd you go
to law school?
West Virginia University.
Very cool. Mountaineers. Very, very cool. I love it. It's a beautiful area. It's a beautiful area.
It is really, really pretty. So I was there, I had a good time. I mean, I really had a good experience. My last 2 years were paid for.
Awesome.
So that really helped kind of just with law school debt, because law school's not cheap.
Law school ain't cheap.
And I got a chance to get a really good firm job. So I worked with the firm doing oil and gas title work.
Were you in West Virginia working? Oh, because you worked in West. So are you licensed? Where are you licensed at? West Virginia and Pennsylvania?
Pennsylvania.
Do they have reciprocity? You had to take 2 bars.
I had to take 2 bars. So what?
Man.
What happened is I had to take West Virginia for my job.
Gotcha.
I Pennsylvania because I had intentions of going home. Now, where I lived in West Virginia, I was only 10 miles from the Pennsylvania border.
Okay, that's cool. That's cool.
So, it made sense for me to get the Pennsylvania bar, but I needed that to go home. Like, I couldn't come home without it. So I took West Virginia in July, and I followed up with Pennsylvania's in February.
Cool. Very cool. Okay. Gee, hear me, sister. You hear me. I owe you dinner because that's hard, man. I'm barred in South Carolina and Georgia. Okay. And I'm going to tell you, it took me a few years to study for the Georgia, but I wasn't even going to try. I was like, what, I'll wait. I'm done. Yeah. Interesting. That's good, though. That speaks a lot. That speaks a lot to your dedication. That's really impressive.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So, and then but at the end of my time in 2014, I started getting a lot of phone calls from my friends because now they're kind of like, early 30s. They're starting to make transitions. Jobs, and they're like, Court, I had this 401k. Do I cash it out? Do I roll it over? And I'm like, no, roll it over. And then we kind of just started having conversations.
Okay,
so like,
cool.
Do I call people? What do I do? And I'm like, come on, y'all. But again, I don't, and it's not like, oh, why don't you know this? But it was, oh, I have hours to bill. I can't be like walking you through a full rollover.
Agreed.
So I said, okay, let me do this for you. I will write blogs about these financial issues.
Very nice.
And we'll work from there. And then, also like full and fair disclosure, I had some credit problems that almost did not get me licensed in Pennsylvania.
Wow. That's real though. That's real. That's real.
Yeah. And it was basically just being irresponsible because there was no reason when I took that severance from Merrill that I didn't have a whole bunch of credit card debt either.
You could have wiped everything out. You could have wiped everything out.
And it was really foolhardy on my part, on my part. And I tell people that, like, listen, don't do what I did. And, and I try to be very fair about it because, I could have handled that a lot differently.
I'm gonna tell you, Courtney. I came out of law school with maybe $130,000 in student loans. I had to step back and really, because what you do is you just don't know what you're getting yourself into, right? And then you have to kind of fight your way back through that stuff. I think it's a cycle that catches all of us, right? I love the transparency. That's really cool. And I've had to go through and just wipe things out. Luckily, I've been able to pay all that stuff off. But I'll tell you, it's your story and our stories are so similar. It's kind of crazy because I think that we think we have these big degrees and we step out and we're working for these big companies. And you look up and it's like, hey, there's a $200,000 student loan bill. Wait, I have 3 kids, and my promise to them is, right, a paid for house, 800 credit, no student loans, right, and a nice little trust that you get a little bit of money when you're 28, a little bit of money when you're 35, setting it up for them because I tell a story. I went to Duke for my MBA, and me and this brother from DC went to Howard. We were looking for apartments. We were in a room together. We were together for 3 years, and we're looking for apartments. And this really good cat, this white cat, he's a good friend of mine to this day. He was like, "Yeah, me and my wife, we're going out looking for the house." I was like, "Looking for a house? Man, you're in business school. What's up?" He said, "No, but my granddad left in his trust that if I got accepted to a top 10 business school before I was 35, I could have $400,000 for my starter home." Isn't that crazy? Wow. So his granddad directed his future from the grave, right? So it's things like that we just don't know about that you have to think through. So I hear you. It's an interesting concept. Listen. So So background. Tell us how you started. So you told us how you started the blog. Tell us about the blog. So guys, just before Courtney and I got on, I asked her a question. I said, "Courtney, what do we call you, right? Do we call you a blogger? Do we call you a coach? Do we call you an advisor?" So we thought we'd pick that discussion up on this interview. So I'm going to ask the question again. What do we call? I think that you're much more than a blogger. I love your blog articles. So what do we call you?
I'm not sure.
All right.
Yeah, so that's what I was trying to avoid.
No, she's fine. No, trust me, she's fine. No worries. She's fine. Is that mom?
I'm sorry?
Is that mom?
That is my mother. I actually helped my mother. She went upstairs. Yeah. I actually helped my mother retire.
Awesome.
But we'll talk about that in a second. And that's actually on the blog how we talked about that. But in terms of like what to call me,
yeah,
I'm not a financial coach. I was saying before, like coaching is not my ministry. I don't have the time to sit down and work with people through issues. Like I'm a DIYer personally, and
gotcha.
I kind of that's my target market, DIY.
Gotcha.
Like
gotcha.
I can give you all the information, and you can do it yourself. And
I'm telling you, I'm kind of the same way. Like what we did for the past month, we had a whole series on teaching people how to use the investment tool Thinkorswim, right? And so it's teaching people how to use a tool. And our thing is, we're not going to tell you where to drive, but we're going to try to teach you how to drive a car. Where you choose to drive is where you choose to drive. But at least you know now how to use one tool of several that can help you be better informed. So I'm with you on that. I like that a lot.
So, in terms of the blog, so the blog kind of just started off as like basically talking about basic concepts that I was seeing people getting messed up.
Nice.
Having a conversation about insurance because a lot of
Why the name the Ivy Investor?
because I'm a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Psi.
That's what good. That I love it. I love that. I thought there was something to that. Awesome. I love my AKs. That's fantastic. Go on. Good deal. Okay. Did you pledge? Did you pledge at? Where'd you pledge?
With Sigma Zeta Omega, Newark, Delaware.
Awesome. Fantastic. Very cool.
So, so the blog itself, talks about. It was kind of like setting up of like the things that we're getting wrong. So that was kind of where we started, like the things we're getting wrong, and how it kind of evolved is just kind of providing commentary across the board. So I'll say so I was talking about insurance. What I noticed about insurance is that a lot of people conceptually were getting it wrong. Insurance is supposed to be just risk transfer. So you're saying the risk of loss of this life, this risk of loss of this income into the household.
Awesome.
So that's kind of the idea of insurance. But a lot of times, especially in the African American community, is that we are subjects of salespeople.
I agree with
we're
you.
all told something. So we're not really getting education. We're getting kind of like a salesman slant.
I agree.
Hurts us.
Yes.
So, I mean, and so the whole point of the Ivy Investor when I first got started is just like, listen, I just want to dispel some of these rumors, some of these myths out there about, insurance is a great tool. Like, I don't want you to think that it's not a good tool because it is. However, in the manner of which we were using it was very problematic. So, and a lot of people are like, buy term, invest the difference. I was like, no, y'all. Like, let's talk about what they are. And the whole thing with whole insurance is that it's for your whole life. So it's going to cost more. It's not a function of, are we paying this out or are we not paying it out as an insurance company? It's that when are we paying it out?
Got you.
And that's really the thing. So in Pennsylvania is one of the very few states that does this. We have an inheritance tax.
Okay.
And so anything that you receive as a result of someone's death is going to be taxed. The fair market value is going to be taxed.
On the state level.
Interesting. First, and it starts at $0. It starts at $1.
Wow.
So there's no kind of, in the federal level, the exemption now is about 11 million.
Exactly.
It's $1 here. So again, and there's an exemption. Let me clarify. There is a family exemption of $3,000 that exists, but it's not, nothing.
Yeah.
So I say that. So joint tenants right survivorship, the property will automatically, so you have A and B, B dies, it becomes property in full. But whatever you receive as B, from B, so the property is 200,000, you receive 100,000 from B. If it's your parent, you're paying, $4,500. So which, if you have it, it's not a problem. But if you don't, it becomes very problematic.
Agreed.
So that's what we talk about. So when I talk about whole life insurance, I said, there's going to be some cost associated with your death. Even if it's just putting your behind in a pine box, throwing you in the ground, there's a cost associated.
Agreed.
You don't
Absolutely
pass that on to your kids. But like kind of that stuff. Like nobody wants to.
I'm going to tell you, even for educated people, like that's a difficult discussion to have in the Black community, right? And it's funny, a really good buddy of mine, is a big time realtor in DC, frat brother of mine, and he's going back and forth. I don't want to give too much because he's probably going to see this, but he's going back and forth, down to about 4 hours to visit he's leaving his business here in DC, driving, taking care of his elderly parents. And we had a heart to heart. He was like, G, I'm telling you, elderly, I'm taking care of them, burning this money. And we still haven't had a discussion about like their, wills and it's, I mean, he was torn with that. And this guy is multiple degree, easily doing $500,000 a year, probably more. And he hasn't had that discussion. And I mean, it's a tough discussion. I had to have that discussion with my parents. That's a tough discussion to have, right? The Black folks are like, nah, once you get this insurance, I'm gonna die. It's crazy, right? But those are the things that happen in our community that we need to. I love how you just explained what you just explained, and it was awesome, right? And we don't have that plain talk from people who we trust. And I'm going to tell you, the one thing that turns black folks off is being sold. I don't like slick salesmen. I just don't like it. That never, rubs me well.
Exactly, and that's exactly it. And that was really like the whole point of the Ivy Investor. It's just like, listen, getting this information so you can educate yourself, and whatever you decide to go out there and buy it,
Yeah.
needs to have a base knowledge, and you're not having somebody's perverted salesmanship.
Agreed.
And I mean, and that's, so I say whole life to put you in the ground. So I say like no more than 25,000, whatever. You may need more than that depending on your situation, but then, you cover your term, and your whole term covers like your kids going, if you if you pass away when your kids are still young, also in a case that if you have private loans, don't go away at death, like all of those types of things that you have to deal with. If you have to pay off your home mortgage, and it's cheaper because you for a term time period, the insurance company is betting that you're not dying in 20 years. You're betting that, okay, I'm not dying in 20 years. That I do, I'm covered. And I tell people, if you have small children, then you want to consider having a testamentary trust. Everything's trust, and they're like, I'm going to have a revocable trust. Don't do all that. First of all, it's usually not what you need, and it does sound sexy, like revocable trust, and it sounds sexy. You want to tell people on the golf course, yeah, this is what I have, but it may not be for you.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
I tell people, just like if it sounds complicated, you're probably doing it wrong.
Can I say something to you that's real? It was a great quote that I read. It was you're only unprepared. It's a Warren Buffett quote. It's like, you're only unprepared if you don't know what you're doing, right? You're only unprepared. It's a really interesting quote. So listen. Let's talk about investing, right? No, this is great. Let's talk about investing. So, because we've got to figure out a way for us to kind of collaborate more. This is really great stuff. Give me as we move into April, the theme for this journal is going to be how we get our money to work for us, right? So the big theme for us in April is dividend and income portfolio investing. About 7 years ago, I devised my first income portfolio, right? I wanted to see how I could make that work. And it's done relatively well. I have to constantly kind of go in, reallocate, readjust. And it's worked well for me. So give me your thought process on, I don't want to put you on the spot, but give me your general themes about investing.
My general themes about investing is I'm what I call, and I guess I'm making this up, I'm an informational investor.
I love it. So am I. I love that.
So and what I mean by that is that I kind of just listen to what's being said, because the markets are people. Like, it's kind of like this person that kind of is irrational. It just doesn't use good sense. And more likely than not, there's going to be some kind of disconnect between
I agree.
actual value and the perceived value. And that's kind of where I make my money, if that makes sense. For example, and I know I know you'll appreciate where I'm coming from with this, that I'm not a fan of it, but with private prisons, I don't know if you remember a couple of years ago, 2016 under President Obama, the Department of Justice came out and said, we're not using private prisons anymore. But if you know anything about private prisons and who uses it on the federal level, there's two entities that use it: the Department of Justice, Immigration and Customs Enforcement.
Absolutely right, yeah.
But ICE, or better known as ICE, didn't say a word. ICE was dead silent. I was like, oh, wait a second, ICE, you have more than DOJ.
That's real, right?
Not saying anything. Now, normally, if you know anything about government, they'll usually make a joint statement.
Absolutely right.
Both of us are doing this. But ICE was like, oh, ICE ain't moving. But what happened in the market is those particular stocks dropped 60% on the day of that announcement. So it was an irrational drop, because if you know anything about, so people took that in a bubble. They'd be like, oh, these stocks are going down, they're terrible, blah, blah. But I'm like, no, their main cash cow isn't DOJ.
No, it's not. Exactly.
So I took that and I said, all right, solid. And I had a conversation with my mother, because I primarily, and my portfolio is pretty much set. My mom, I try to really focus on income generation.
Sure.
And I said, Mommy, I want to jump in here. I got to do it quickly. Can I do it? And she was like, I don't agree with it. I don't want you staying in there long, but if you can, exploit the market, then by all means. And so I jumped in with Core Civic. I don't remember what they were, not Core Civic at the time. It was something, and they did a name change. So I purchased in August or September, and I doubled my money by October.
Ain't that crazy?
About November.
So
the day of the election. That's when
I love. Let me. It's crazy that you say that, right? So this cat that I went to business school with, he was a lawyer also. We would sit down, man. He was the craziest guy. Still is the craziest guy. He's going to listen to this. He's going to know what I'm talking about. But his whole philosophy is, Garen, follow the money, right? So for several years, man, what we did was we looked at corporate litigation. We looked at corporate litigation. And what we would do was we would call clerks' offices, right, and figure out when decisions were coming down. And so I can give you a few examples. But we would figure out when decisions were coming down, and we would contact the clerk's office, and we would place bets. We would place investments on who we thought were going to win corporate litigation. And I think I tripled my money over like the course of 2 years. And this was not an insignificant amount of money, but it's all about information. And it's completely legal, all about information, and you have to sit down and analyze. The motto for our group is best informed wins. I truly believe that, right? Best informed wins. So it's interesting. I know lots of technical traders. I think that's an approach, right? I'm not a technical trader. It takes a lot to do that. I'm much more of I'll sit in a cash position for months researching a particular move. I'll make 2 or 3 big moves a year, right? And then sit back and stop. It's crazy that people, all this moving back and forth. By way of background, I took like 6 months off a couple of years ago and just day traded. So my setup in my house, man, I had these huge screens and I was there. It almost drove me nuts. I mean, to have to look at those signals. I know guys who do it, and that's great. That's not the life I want to live. I mean, 2 or 3 big moves a year. I'll 50%, double my money. I'm good to go. I keep a big pot that I use to invest in, and I stop. So I'm with you 1,000,000% on that.
And I mean, and that's pretty much so to the point of information. Also with Brexit, I was following back Brexit when that hit, the market went crazy.
It went crazy,
irrationally crazy, and I was so sad because I didn't have enough cash. Like I got into Apple. At $94 a share.
Woo! Really?
Yeah. But and the thing that made me angry, and I talk about this with my group, is that I had it in an account that I couldn't do an in-kind transfer.
Wow.
So I had to get rid of it beginning of this month.
Courtney, you must have been reading our minds, man. We had a whole series, a whole discussion about cash positions, right? I'm a big believer on maintaining a really healthy cash position. I'm house hunting now, and the underwriter was like, well, why do you keep so much money in your investment account doing nothing? Because I want to be ready to make a move when it's time to make a move, right? I mean, that's what it is. I've gotten caught so many times, like you said, seeing a nice swing trade, a couple weeks swing trade, and not being able to do a thing because I was just depleted cash flow. I won't make that same mistake again.
And that's what I'm saying. You get burned one good time, and you're like, "Well, that's it.
So keep going. We were talking about your philosophies on investing, and I know it's 8:19. You've been so good to stay with us. I won't keep you past 8:30. I promise.
So basically, I pretty much run an portfolio information system.
Love it.
I get into I read so I do every so often I do an IPO. So I did the IPO piece on Dropbox. I did one. I
saw this. So listen. I'm gonna tell you. You hurt my feelings, man. I was like into the Dropbox IPO. I was like, but I'm gonna tell you. I read your stuff. It was incredibly well done. I agree with you. But you also did the problem with the IPO last year.
With Snapchat.
Give me the overview of both of those IP. What was your take on both of them?
Well, the thing is, the reason why they're even rolling is the
Yeah.
Jobs. So the Jobs Act is pretty much like allowing the dot-com bubble to happen again.
Agreed.
Allowing kind of all this push into the tech market. In the tech market, you have to be profitable. There's no place in business where you can exist when you're not profitable.
Hell no, I agree.
This is pretty much, to me, on Snapchat and on Dropbox, that the early investors are trying to cash out. That's
interesting. Can I ask you a question? I was surprised that Dropbox has told the investment community go kick rocks for years. I was always wondering. Everybody was like, "Yeah, Dropbox is coming out." I was like, "Why is Dropbox going to IPO now?" And then I read your information. It's the early investors want their money out now.
Oh, but let me tell you who some of these early investors are.
Yeah.
So the Rothschilds.
Whoa. Okay.
So that was listed in their S1, and I go through those S1s.
I saw you, sister. I saw you heads down. I saw you heads down turning those pages. I was like, "Whoa, she's doing it. All right."
And I couldn't get into it as much as I wanted to. But if I start seeing something, I mean, again, to your point about following the money, I was like, oh, because at first it says like Rothschild Holdings or something like that. It's not a full, but it's a mention of a Rothschild. And I was like, now, if I had to guess, I think that's a Rothschild. But let me go look. So I looked on Bloomberg, and it ended up going to a private holding company, which is also then held the private holding company of something that's held by Lord Rothschild.
Wow. Crazy.
So I said, okay, y'all in here. Oh, I see you. And they were actually looking to do, I think there was like 395 million shares. They had 2.5 million shares. So there was a lot going on.
Yeah, got you.
That Dropbox. And I agree with Steve Jobs when Steve Jobs said, hey, I pretty much feel like this is a product, it's a service, but not necessarily a company. And I agree with that, like, because everybody has a cloud now. When Dropbox, and I think Dropbox probably would have been more appropriate to IPO a long time ago.
I thought the same thing, because now, right? So I've been a Dropbox user for years, but then because my kids' school used Google Docs, like I use, and it's an even better product. In it has an even better cloud product than Dropbox. I thought they missed their window also. So it's very interesting. Hey, tell me about the Snapchat thing. What was the deal with Snapchat?
Snapchat was a mess. Snapchat was a straight mess. And again, the Jobs Act allowed them to do a lot of things. It pretty much allows them to fly under the radar, like they aren't fully audited. And not saying that they have any funny business going on. I'm not making that implication.
Sure.
But it's just a lot of the controls that are normally in a regular IPO are not there. And I feel like because of that, like they're pretty much able to submit their documents to the SEC confidentially before they actually go live.
Interesting.
That's one of the conditions of the Jobs Act. And I get what they were trying to do when they initiated it. But again, this is not a space that you want to just have an equal opportunity, an equal opportunity investment opportunity.
Yeah.
Not necessarily. Now, Snapchat had a really interesting share structure that no one else has embraced. The fact that all of their, I think they were A shares that went public. Don't have any voting rights associated with them. Dropbox did something very similar. They did give a 1-for-1. So for every share you get one vote, but the B shares that were not being offered was 10-to-1. So even if you owned all of their shares that were outstanding, you still had a situation where you would still be outvoted.
Interesting.
You're getting the benefits of this cash infusion, but not the responsibility of being responsible to your shareholders in a manner that you normally would.
I got to pick your brain more, because I really want to figure out, like, I don't know if you had the chance to see Lamar's interview with Braxton, really, really solid sister from Black Mama Vodka. But she's gearing up for a public offering. I'll send you the link to it. I'll say it's a sister gearing up for a public offering, but because of the Jobs Act, she's doing a WeFundMe to sell pre-IPO shares of her stock.
There's the option under the Jobs Act, what they rolled out maybe 2 years ago.
Exactly. That's it. Absolutely right. So she's doing that. I love the concept. I think it's like I'm an accredited investor, so I get dozens of like, ICO stuff coming down the pike. And I'm always kind of leery of what's going on there. Listen, it's 8:25. I got to get you to come back on with us and talk more about this. And it's all good stuff. I could talk to you for another hour. Jeez. So listen. Thank you so much for your time. Any sort of last words for folks as we moved into this, strategy discussion session? You know what? I want to get the story about your mom and how you helped her to retire. I thought that was a really great story.
So, in 2005, so one of the reasons why I wanted to come back to Philly is that my mom kind of was in some trouble.
Okay, gotcha.
So my parents were divorced in 99.
Okay.
And we had a lot of debt that was associated with that.
Gotcha.
In 2001, 2002, she decided to file for bankruptcy. She did Chapter 13.
Got it.
So, Chapter 13 basically is that you have some assets that you want to protect. In her case, it was the house.
Gotcha.
She wanted to protect the house. So the way the Chapter 13 was set up is that she had to maintain her mortgage, which was $1,200 a month.
Got it.
And then she also had a payment that paid her back mortgage, all the other stuff.
Gotcha.
Which was another $800 a month.
Gotcha.
So that was just what she was paying out of her pocket. That wasn't her lights. That wasn't anything kind of running the house. It was just
that's just the payment on the 13. Got it. Okay.
Payment on the 13. So we were like, okay. So I said, well, where are we? What are we doing? And she was just like, I'm overwhelmed. And I said, okay. She ended up getting laid off. So she's a nurse by trade.
Oh, okay. Cool.
So, she was doing what's kind of like a personal care. And they decided to close that personal care because they felt like it wasn't anything she did. It was just the fact that they weren't really getting the money they wanted off of it. Like it wasn't.
Sure.
So the system that they had, which I think was a good idea, is that they had apartments, personal care. Apartments where basically they got checked on a couple times a week.
Yeah.
And if you needed more supervision, you were in personal care, which basically was kind of like a dorm living.
Gotcha.
You had space, you had lunch, you had basically a dorm for older people. But if you actually needed a lot of help, then that's when you went to the nursing care.
Gotcha.
But this middle section wasn't really what they wanted. The nursing home is where they were getting all of their money. So they're like, well, they're doing this. So they basically kind of phased out that middle section.
Sure.
So she said, so she was 55. And this is where I talk about people, you have to know the rules. You have to know the rules and you have to play better than anybody else.
That's real. That's real.
That to say she was 55, and if you're 55 and you are retired, then you can remove money from your 401k or any of your retirement, your 401k, I should say, or your employer sponsored plan without the 10% penalty. So what we did, because she was laid off, is she only had $10,000 in there, and that was her employer contribution.
Cool.
I pulled $10,000 out. And then I used that to kind of help her in the bankruptcy. That kind of freed her up. I put that $10,000. I did some on the mortgage. I did just kind of cleaned up some stuff to really just make it a solid.
You played chess. I got it.
So I said, okay, now we're okay. And then she ended up going back to work, and I said, let's see how we're going to do this. I said, we have some time in your bankruptcy. How do you want to do it? She's like, I want to get it done. I said, let's go. So I said, this is your money. How do you want to do it? So she lived on a very low budget. She had a car that was paid off. So I said, okay, well, we're going to put as much money as we can through the bankruptcy, get that done. So in 2006, she started in 2002, 2006, she was done. Got her out.
Whoa. Wow. Okay.
All right. Next move, we're going to pay off this house. So 6 years later.
I'm not trying to get in your business, but how much, what are we talking about? How much are we talking about to pay the house off?
I think it was 80,000.
Whoa.
Wasn't that much.
So but I'll tell you what though, 80,000, that's, you ain't coming out of pocket 80,000, not blinking. That's heavy money for a nurse doing a thing.
Well, yeah, we rock it, but she had a budget, and I tell people all the time is that you have to have a budget. You have to you have to have a goal. Like everything stops. You have to have a goal. Your finances have to match your goal.
Absolutely right.
Her goal was that she said, Courtney, I talk about this a couple of times. It's like, she's like, I want to retire at 65. I was like, Mommy, I can't do 65, but we can do 66. And she said, okay.
That's real.
So she said, my retirement is 66. And I said, I'm going to get you there. You ready? I said, buckle up. It's going to be a bumpy ride.
That's real.
But so I said, okay, we're going to get rid of and we were contributing to her 401k. So I was budget wise, I wasn't maxing her out because I couldn't, because I had to put that money on the house.
Yeah.
So I said, I can't max you out yet, but I will. So I put as much money as I could. Offhand, I don't remember how much I was putting in.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
Paid her off. And we got in a scuffle. We got in a huge scuffle with the mortgage company because remember how I said everything fell apart?
Mm-hmm.
Our mortgage was originally with EMC, which was a Bear Stearns company.
I know. Yep. I know it. Yep.
So JP Morgan picked up the portfolio, but she had all those bankruptcy fees. So in her EMC statements, and thank God my mom keeps everything, her EMC statement said that it was bankruptcy fees. JP Morgan said they were late fees, all kinds of other fees, and bankruptcy. And I called them. So I paid off the house. The principal was paid off in August of 2012. And they said, and they were going to try to foreclose because there was $6,000 in bankruptcy fees. And I said, all right. I said, can we settle this? How can we do this? And at this point, I just finished studying for the bar. I didn't have my license yet.
Yeah.
Well, what can we do? Like, where do we? No, we're not willing to do anything. I said, you know what? You're going to get this $1,258 payment.
And I'm going to call it. You're right.
And they were like, okay. And they kept calling. I said, I got something for you. So once I got my license end of October. So I came home for Thanksgiving of 2012. I wrote a 4-page letter to the Office of the Controller because I said, I'm not playing with y'all. And basically I wrote down everything that they did during the course of having the loan, basically saying that they were harassing her because she was paying her payments. They would call and they would say, Ms. Richardson, we're looking for your payment. And I said, okay. And I would take her calls and I said, okay, well, let's talk about it. I said, when's the payment due? Oh, no later than the 5th of every month. I said, well, how much is the payment? $1,200. I know this by heart, $1,258. I said, okay, when was the last payment you received? Oh, Ms. Richardson, we received it on the 3rd. I said, how much was it? $1,258. Why are you calling me?
Courtney, let me say something to you, Dale. You and I can talk about. I swear to you, I help so many of my friends out who have these same, very similar student loan troubles, right? Mm-hmm. Because these debt collection agencies can run rampant over people. It's the craziest thing in the world, man. I mean, it's just, and you have to have enough confidence to know that they're doing wrong. I have sued 50 debt collection agencies, right? For friends of mine, right? Here's the proof. Here's what you did. Here's the recorded thing. $1,000 a pop. They just don't care, which is what kills me about what Trump is doing when he's rolling back the what's the agency that Warren started? The Consumer Protection, the Consumer Protection Bureau. That story just resonates so much with me because our people get taken so much advantage of. It's just, I hate it. And many people don't have a daughter like you or a cat like me who knows the law, who just isn't afraid to fight back.
And that's honestly what put the fire under me.
Yeah, I love it.
Got my butt burned. I was like, oh, real? I said, because how many people are you doing like this to my mother who doesn't?
Sister, I'm gonna tell you, I shut down my student loan advisory service just because there was so much, and I kind of felt bad charging folks, right? This is my issue. I felt bad charging folks because they were just in such distress. I still get easily 10 calls a week from people. Like, can you help me out here? I point them in different directions, try to help them out. But it's rugged out there. They take advantage of our people, man.
They really do. And it's like, and they say in the Bible, my people will perish for a lack of knowledge.
For lack of knowledge.
That's where we are. So it was just really like, once we got to that, I was like, and I remember I sent the letter out. It had 16 exhibits. I was 4-page letter. And that was November 30th. So then I went back to West Virginia. Went about my business. My mother called me like first or second week in December. I said, I had this check from the mortgage company. And I was like, I don't know. How'd you get a check from the mortgage company? And she said, I don't know. And I said, well, just hold it. Let me figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
I called the mortgage company. I said, hi, I'm Courtney Richardson, blah, blah. And I said, and I couldn't get through the system because there was no account that existed. I said, okay. So I spoke to somebody. They was like, Ms. Richardson, your mortgage is paid off.
Done.
I said, oh, okay, thank you. And then I had my boyfriend was actually working at Department of
Yeah,
Records.
yeah,
So I said, listen, do me a favor. If you see it, let me know.
yeah.
I get a phone call. He said, I have satisfaction in my hand. I said, that's what I'm talking about.
Done deal.
I said, okay, now we're getting somewhere. So the house is paid off. Now I'm maxing her out. So I'm maxing her out at 16. I think it was 16 or 17, whatever we were doing.
Wow.
Maxing her out every year. And I said, okay, I said, but then, but God, because the market was rolling.
The market was rolling. You're right, sister.
I had her allocated properly. So I had a decent allocation in international. I had pretty much an exposure to large cap value.
Oh man. Yeah, okay.
So and then I had a little bit of a bond allocation, and I told her, I said,
So let
Mommy.
me ask you a question. So you were doing all income. You were doing all income ETFs.
No. This is just in her 401k.
This is just her 401k. Okay. Oh wow. Okay, gotcha.
Large cap value mutual fund. I had the BlackRock, and she had BlackRock. So we had a BlackRock,
Nice.
International, and remember, BlackRock funds used to be Merrill Lynch funds.
Exactly. Okay.
And then we had a small bond allocation. I don't know if it probably was like an aggregate bond, and so that's kind of what her allocation was until we stopped. So then I rolled her over into Merrill Lynch. And I said, and again, like I said 66, Mommy. I was like, can you give me 66? And it pushed out her Social Security, and it was like a $400 bump between 65 and 66.
Nice.
That's where we need to be, because when you look at, they give you 62, 65, 66, and then like 70 or something.
Yeah. Okay.
And 70 didn't make sense. 66 was the number for
that was the sweet spot.
Exactly. And I said, well, that's what we're going to do. So her car, so she has my old car.
Got it. Cool.
I gave her my car. And so I said, her car was paid off. The house is paid off. She had a very substantial amount of money. And remember, we started at 0 in 2006.
In 2006.
Yeah, we got it popping. Like I said, it was about a budget. It was about that out. So it was a budget, putting the money in, and then having the proper allocation.
Mo folks said, but God. Mo folks said, but God. Mo folks, that's what them folks. Look here, Courtney. It's 8:37. I know you're tired. You've spent so much time with us. Thank you so much. Listen, can we get you back on, please?
Of course.
Like you got to be a part of our community, man. I honestly could sit here and talk with you for another 3 or 4 hours. You would get tired of me. I would talk with you for another 3 or 4 hours. This is awesome, sister. It's just phenomenal information. You were great, and thank you so much. Okay, listen, we're going to get this published. Make sure we connect with you. Folks, we just got blessed with this beautiful knowledge tonight. Courtney, I'm going to stop this recording, all right? Don't hang up. I got to talk to you, okay? Stop the recording. Stop